And I'm moderating this panel, and we want to thank you for joining us today and choosing this workshop. We know that this is a topic that almost every clubhouse has struggled with. And as we've known for like the last 7 months of the pandemic, our clubhouses have had to really shift dramatically and pivot from building-based services to virtual services, and moving from our standard work order days to trying to make some sense of an online structure. And that's been a challenge for everybody. We have two clubhouses with us today who've done a remarkable job of making this dramatic shift. First, we will hear from Chris Ploss and Sarah Cronin from Genesis Club in Massachusetts, and they're going to cover things like operating a solid work order day during COVID and in now the new hybrid world. They're going to share some examples and challenges that they've experienced. They're also going to cover enrolling new members and conducting virtual orientations. They're also going to stress the importance of committing to the solid integrity of a work order day. Most of us have done pretty well with wellness and social programming kinds of activities, but running a solid work order day that we are typically used to, they'll share what's worked for them at Genesis. Then we're going to move over to Ashlyn McMillan and Renee Schell from Frontier House in Greeley, Colorado. And they're going to cover how they made adaptations during the pandemic to run their work order day. Their clubhouse is a little bit smaller than Genesis. They're also going to talk about how they're operating now, because they are open, and they're going to share with us how that's going and some safety measures they've implemented. They're also going to do a short piece on how they produce their newsletter. Frontier House really has an excellent newsletter, and they spend a lot of time in thinking of the audience, who receives it, what the message and branding of the newsletter is, and they've done a really good job with that, so they're going to cover that as well. After their presentation, we'll conclude with questions from you, so use that little box to send in your questions, and I'll moderate at the end with the Q&A, and we'll try to get after all of them. And so without any further ado, please welcome Chris and Sarah from Genesis Club.
Hi, everybody. I am Sarah. I am staff in the business unit at Genesis Club in Worcester, Mass. And I have been working at the clubhouse since 2016.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Ploss. I've been a member at Genesis for 2 years, and I'm a member in the career development unit as well as the young adult committee.
Awesome. So at the start of quarantine and COVID-19, Genesis Club immediately set forth a plan to call every member every day. And for the first week of quarantine, that's exactly what we did. We met each morning for a morning meeting, and then we spent the day outreaching member after member for a week. And we use these discussions to detect things like member needs like care packages, and to reduce the feeling of isolation that people were experiencing during quarantine. And from the very beginning, Genesis Club made really clear that we were not closed just because we couldn't access the building and do our in-house clubhouse work. We were not closed. We were there no matter where we were. And by the end of that first week, all the staff felt pretty awkward doing staff-only reach-out calls. So we started to recruit members and partners to join us and reach out with us by doing three-way phone calls, conference calls, and pretty quickly, those phone calls naturally led to our working members asking us for help with unemployment applications and things like that. So that's really where we started our hybrid clubhouse. Just like a hybrid car, which uses gas and electricity to run, we were using both our remote work and our in-house work to run. And we started getting into our unemployment applications, employment supports, and quickly moving into education supports, helping students use their Blackboards through Zoom screen sharing. And after that first week of those staff-led reach-out calls, many of our units felt that standard number 9 really fueled our fire. The clubhouse staff really are few enough to make carrying out their responsibilities impossible without member involvement. The clubhouse would not stay afloat without our members. And the members started to tell us that as great as those reach out calls were, the work really is where our members find recovery and purpose. Next slide. So after a few weeks of quarantine, we all started to realize and accept the reality that the virus was not going away anytime soon. And we were going to have to further adjust our work order day so that we could give the members opportunity to participate in all of the work of the clubhouse, no matter where they were. For us, our reopening is still really slow and incremental. We're still operating at about 25% of our previous in-house capacity. So for reference, our average daily attendance before was somewhere between 80 and 90 members. And now we have 20 to 30 people, both staff and members, working inside the clubhouse. So the rest of our community is working from home, and it's really become essential that we can make our in-house work accessible to members and staff who need to and want to participate in clubhouse work from home as well. Next, yes. So to start building our hybrid structure, it was really important to our members that we maintain a sense of familiarity. So we wanted to use procedures and tools that we use on a regular basis in our in-house work to organize our work, our hybrid work. So every morning we continued our daily house-wide morning meetings to share clubhouse news, meetings for the day, unit news that we wanted to share with the club. And really this meeting has evolved a lot over time because it's the only time that we're all able to meet during the day, because we no longer have those check-ins as you walk around the clubhouse and you kind of stop by units and see what things are going on and what everyone's up to. So we use this meeting to share what we should share in our reach out calls in terms of clubhouse news and events and those sorts of things. Now, our beloved whiteboard. We all love the whiteboard, and that's always been the way that we organize our work in units. So now that we are remote, units have found other ways to share unit agendas. We share them on social media, we share them through group text messages, online platforms like Slack. And at this point, I should probably mention that we're only hosting 2 formal unit meetings a week right now because we're exclusively using our WebEx system for our units to meet and plan our work and discuss member needs, member goals, all sorts of things. So units are often checking in throughout the week using Zoom calls, conference calls, group chats, things like that to stay in touch. It is more important than ever to make sure the unit work is clear during your unit meetings. People who call in on the phone have to know what work is available and what that work entails before they are willing to sign up for anything. They're not inclined, no one is inclined to sign up for a job that you don't know what it entails. So if you're putting out there, we have reach out calls we could partner on. People have to know whether that entails a 3-way phone call, a Zoom call, that sort of thing, making sure that unit work is very clear. At this point, we've also brought back policy meetings, seeking housing meetings, our job seekers workshops, all using our WebEx system. So those meetings have become more and more accessible to members, whether they're in-house or working from home. And we've made sure that our meeting schedules have also been put out in many, many ways, from our newsletters to social media, and of course we share them on our reach out calls as well. So how do we include our members? The more we heard from our members, the more we were asked questions about various committee meetings. People began asking how they could become involved in our clubhouse work again, in the young adult committee meeting, in the older adult committee meeting, and those sorts of things. So let's hear from Chris on how he became reunited with his clubhouse.
So from the beginning of quarantine, I was receiving texts and video calls from the young adult committee and my unit. From there, I was invited to attend young adult committee meetings and unit meetings, which we hold on WebEx. Once I attended a meeting, the work came naturally. Once I attended the work, it came naturally. I was asked to help write meeting minutes, and we started using Slack to share unit agendas, plan young adult socials, and to connect even more. So in many cases, the work in units progressed naturally, but not always. What felt natural was to bring back the old work from our unit whiteboards and try to work off the boards again. But that work isn't always relevant. Our circumstances are different right now. once we were able to let the old stuff go, we were able to develop new work to meet the current circumstances of Clubhouse staff and members. For example, the business unit puts together our Genesis Alive newsletter, which was a small booklet of articles, some fun, some informative, that we distributed in-house only and created on Microsoft Publisher. The business unit had to change this job completely into a short and sweet one-page newsletter that was mainly informative, that would now be created on an online platform that was accessible remotely and would be mailed out. This job completely changed, but it has become more relevant to the current times and works best that way. Another example is that the kitchen unit previously was using Gordon's food delivery service, which is a large delivery service which delivers bulk and large quantities of food items. This job was done side by side on the computer inside the clubhouse. The kitchen unit now no longer needs these bulk quantities of food to serve lunch to the smaller amount of people inside the clubhouse. The kitchen now places online grocery orders with a local grocery store, and this job is often done with a conference call or share screen, where our members and staff are now able to work virtually side by side to place the orders. The job has changed, but has become more relevant to the current times. Next slide. There are a few things we have found really seem to work as well as we develop remote clubhouse work. Partner reach out calls and group chats, Zoom calls and share screen for editing clubhouse publications and videos to help with education and employment supports, like filling out unemployment applications and helping students with their online blackboards, to write grants and progress reports for grants, to update our clubhouse kiosk through our Dropbox, to make birthday cards, to make online grocery orders, and to research hardware needed by our environmental facilities unit to build new outdoor picnic tables and make clubhouse repairs. Signing up for work in unit meetings and reaching out to include other members who may not have been present for the unit meeting but would like to stay involved in unit work has also been a big help. We know that before, when we were in the club, members want to engage in work whether they make it for the unit meeting or not. So we assume the same is true now. We are always connected and keeping in touch and checking on work progress, asking things like, should we do a Zoom call or work on this together?
Right. So, of course, the hybrid clubhouse is not always easy for everyone. We continue to address barriers to inclusion, helping people call into unit meetings. And the next step for us really became figuring out how to make as many jobs as possible accessible from both home and from inside the clubhouse. We helped people update their technology. We talked people through the steps of how to access a WebEx meeting and how to join a Zoom call, and we practice with our members. Right now, we sign up for work a few days in advance because, like I said, we had those 2 formal unit meetings a week. So we often sign up for more work than we can do in one day at our unit meeting. Someone might sign up to do birthday cards and reach out calls and morning meeting minutes, but those jobs might not all be done in one day. So it allows for the work order day to extend until our next unit meeting or until we talk again through a Zoom call or group chat or something like that. Next slide. Our new member orientation and referral process has really been in a period of change during this time. The membership unit has learned a lot through what used to be our process, what we tried, and what didn't work out so well. Our process used to be that we would receive a referral, we'd schedule a tour, we'd schedule an orientation, and we'd get people into the club as quickly as possible. So at first, we tried to mirror a very similar process, but we quickly found some hiccups. So Chris will tell us about his experience giving a virtual clubhouse tour.
So I gave a virtual clubhouse tour to a particular young adult a little while back. I found the tour to be pretty ineffective. The person was bored eating a snack and really not interested and barely paying attention. The physical clubhouse seemed pretty unimportant to the prospective member at this point, and it has really not been effective as a way to engage new members at this time.
So as you can imagine, our process has changed. Our process now is that a member staff team will call the new prospective member regularly. Of course, that new member will decide what the frequency might be, but we talk to them several times a week at least to establish a relationship and get to know what that person is looking for in terms of goals in the club. This usually will take somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks. And as these conversations progress, we're talking about different aspects of the club that the person might like based on their interests and their goals. Eventually, that member is invited to join a meeting of some sort, a unit meeting, a young adult meeting, a job seekers meeting. And from here, the new member will meet and get to know more people. And as you can imagine, our virtual tours have become few and far between because we've really found it to be more of a barrier rather than an effective engagement tool. The technology doesn't work, the internet connection's lost, the tour's fast, it's confusing, and that's okay. It's actually really important to reevaluate and reassess processes that aren't working and rework the processes and procedures to make them fit our current times. Now, we know when our hybrid work is successful, when people are using it and feeling comfortable with the technology. We hear from members that by engaging in unit work, the pandemic anxiety is lessened. And we know even more that our hybrid work is working when our members start to suggest it themselves. The members become involved in work again on their own, and it once again feels like member choice rather than members being pressured to step out of their comfort zones. And we know that learning and becoming comfortable with new technology will be a skill that will benefit members, staff, and the clubhouse moving forward. So continuing to expand accessibility to our members, to our meetings, and to our clubhouse work has now become a goal that Genesis Club would like to continue to develop for weeks, months, and years to come. And on that note, I would like to send this on over to Renee and Ashlyn at Frontier Clubhouse in Colorado.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll take the next slide. Thank you. All right, well, this is my near and dear colleague, Ashlyn McMillan. She is a member in the clerical unit, and she's been part of our clubhouse for about 5 years. And this is my near and dear colleague, Renee Schell, who has been at our clubhouse for 23 years. She does a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Well, this is us. We were established in 1990, and we've been accredited since 1999. We're located in Greeley, Colorado, which is considered a large rural community. We have 1,300 plus members to date with a 42 average daily attendance during normal times. And we are open. Next slide. So work order day during the pandemic, our work order day is just as strong as ever. We have all the work that we continue to do despite COVID. We have all of our clubhouse meetings are held at normal times. We have our morning meeting every day with 2 unit meetings per day in each unit as well. We have our weekly clubhouse meeting, which is our discussion meeting, and our calendar planning, standards discussion, and menu planning meetings as well. Our work order day is operating fully Monday through Friday as normal. Lunch is available 5 days a week, and our socials are offered on evenings, weekends, and holidays as usual as well. We are doing tours and orientation, not only virtually, but also in-house as well. And our clubhouse shuttle is operating at a limited capacity. So, you know, a lot of our work order day is back to normal with just a few changes here and there. Next slide. So the work order day during a pandemic, the work that we do now because of COVID-19 has expanded.
So our work order day responsibilities doesn't only encompass the work that we did before, but we have a whole new layer of responsibilities that we take care of now. So we operate our clubhouse as a hybrid clubhouse, which came to us during the pandemic, and we've continued to operate our Zoom platform as a way to make all meetings and socials available to our members. So for every meeting and every social, we open up our Frontier House Zoom room, and we may get a large amount of people in there, or we may not get anybody. It just depends on the needs of our membership. We're open normally, and we still engage our members in work order day from home. And some of these things that our members continue to do remotely largely have to do with our technology tools, such as our app, our Facebook posts, helping with the newsletter. We also have members conducting reach out from home. We have members that will join the virtual orientation from home, scheduling tours, making birthday cards. We have some crafty members that love to get out their crafts at home and make cards even on the weekends, sewing masks, and delivering food and care packages. So the whole process of implementing, I'm sorry, if we could shift back to the last slide, please. The whole process of implementing the health and safety procedures has really, if you will, embellished our work order day. We certainly embrace the extra work and effort and concentration and urgency that goes into maintaining our clubhouse safety and health. So first and foremost, we had to set our space up. As you all can probably relate, we try very hard. It's very natural for clubhouses to want to pull people together, pull our spaces together, set our units so that we can have side-by-side work, not just with two people, but with a big group of people sometimes. And we pull as many chairs in so we can include as many people as possible. Well, COVID certainly challenges us in that regard. We had to leave some of that on the side, and we really had to focus on making our space safe. So that was a little challenging, I know, for me personally.
It's kind of weird.
Go in there and push things apart, but we knew that we had to do that in order to have our clubhouse open and to be safe. So we put chairs in storage. The computer stations, usually we have like 4 computers all together. We had to separate those out some more, and just tape some marks on the floors so that we know where the physical distancing happens. Of course, we say physical distance because it is by no means in our book a social distance. We are still very social together.
Oh yeah.
Another part of our work order day process, which is pretty important, is checking in our members. So before, again, another concept that was challenged is that our doors were always open and people were coming and going very freely. Yeah. And now we have to monitor that due to the COVID screening. So we do have our main entrance doors locked, and our members ring in at the back. There's a doorbell, they ring in, and a colleague will go let them in. And then we have a little screening station in our back door where the colleague will fill out a screening form for COVID. We take temperatures, we make sure they've got a mask and that the mask fits well. They wash their hands, wash and sanitize their hands, and then they come on in through the rest of the building, and they actually go through the normal sign-in process. So that step in itself has created a lot of work, particularly for our clerical unit, which is the unit that manages our front door and front desk area, our reception area. So that person at the front desk also monitors the number of people in the building at any time. And that's always changing because our colleagues are still coming and going. So we got to keep up with who's in the building, how many people do we have in the building, is everybody spread out. We don't want 30 people all in our dining room. We want to spread everybody out and maximize our space and our square footage. Disinfecting blitzes. I know before the pandemic, you know, it was always kind of a challenge. I'd go and it's like, are we disinfecting today? Like, oh, that can be put off till tomorrow. And, you know, it didn't seem like it was kind of those higher order tasks that we had, but now it certainly is. And we call them blitzes because we have bottles and disinfectant bottles and towels everywhere, and everybody goes around and disinfects all at once, and we do that a few times a day, and it is definitely a priority. We recognize not only do we want our colleagues to maintain their health, we want to stay open. Yeah. And so we have to do these things. This becomes very urgent for us. Our lunch service expanded. Before, we really focused on lunch being indoors in our dining room, in our big, dining room all together. And we had to expand that in order to be able to meet the needs of our entire clubhouse. So we have outdoor dining as well. We do grab and go, and then we also do delivery meals as needed. And this has expanded certainly the options. We're noticing that more people are taking advantage of lunch. We are noticing most recently a trend where more people want to come inside now. Regardless of all these fancy ways that we set everything up, people still like to be together, which is kind of cool to see that as we go further into hopefully putting this behind us, that people really just want to be together. So the important thing is that we're offering the different options, and things have expanded, and it's created more work for our colleagues. Next slide, please.
And the next few slides are going to show some examples in pictures about how we're going down with all this. So here you can see a couple of colleagues working in the kitchen. You can kind of see the example of how they're sharing the space and how they're not as close as they might be during normal day, but they're still doing work order day stuff together.
We do love pictures in our clubhouse. They often call me the clubhouse paparazzi. So we always like to show off that when we get a chance. This certainly will show the two colleagues in the kitchen, but by no means is it just these two colleagues working on lunch that day. On other areas in the clubhouse is the kitchen unit, more colleagues from the kitchen unit working towards lunch. Next slide, please. So this slide, we'll see how there are colleagues during the same day of lunch helping. And so we've actually expanded our space into kind of our dining room so that more people can work together on lunch. So be creative with your space. So we have a clubhouse that has, I think we're like at 6,000 square feet, and we normally will just pack all into one space, but we need to spread out and maximize our space, and so be creative with those ideas for sure. Next slide.
And this is another example of that, that expanding of the space. Here's where we normally serve our lunches. And so we put those couple of tables there so that we can also use that as an extension of colleagues working in the kitchen.
Next slide. This is an example of lunch service options expanded with our outdoor pickup, the grab and go. So on night, fortunately, we've had pretty nice days, obviously through the summer. And we would have colleagues who were tasked with making sure that we were greeting people outside and getting those lunches off on the road.
Yep.
Next slide.
And here's an example of a colleague working on our care packages. So just another example of how we were able to expand the work order day. And you can see, we were able to put together pretty extensive care packages. So that was really nice and helpful during the pandemic. Next slide, please. And here's an example of a couple of colleagues working in the clerical unit. You can see here how our space is different. Usually there are 4 computers here and the tables are closer together, but we would bring, a big group there to work together. And here we can only have the 2 computers, but we still have the colleagues working side by side.
Next slide.
And here's our weekly clubhouse meeting. You can see on the far wall, we have our Zoom room open. So, and you can see the room is full, even though we have to physically distance. That did not impact our membership during our meetings.
And there are even more colleagues not in view. So that we usually can accommodate more people, but we spread people out throughout the entire clubhouse for this meeting. So we're not all in one space, but everybody can still be involved, and obviously those at home. Next slide.
And here's an example of one of our clerical unit meetings, and you can see our Zoom room open there as well. So it's been really helpful. So, you know, we can be by the whiteboards and we can ask the people in the Zoom room what they want to sign up for as well. So that helps with the daily work.
Next slide.
Another couple of colleagues working side by side at our front desk area. So you can see, again, you know, the side by side really never goes away. Even though this physical distance is in effect, we're always still doing stuff together.
Next slide. So this is an example of a couple of our colleagues working at home on face masks. We go through face masks fast. We're constantly providing those to our members, and we're having to keep up stock on those quite a bit. So these gals work very hard at home on making face masks for our clubhouse. Next slide.
And here's an example of one of our Zoom socials. This was one of our first ones, birthday and bingo, which is really popular in our clubhouse. So members were able to come in and get a little mug with a cake and a bingo card, and then we all played bingo together from home. And it was a really neat experience.
Next slide.
So a couple of things that we've been using, we've had these communication tools before COVID, but this situation has really ramped up our use of it. Our monthly newsletter publication, that's something that we share within our clubhouse with our board, employers, donators, fundraisers, and referral sources. So that goes out to a wide range of people. We like to keep that informative and, you know, really packed full of information. Our Facebook, our Clubhouse app, and our text reminders, we've really ramped up use of that. Those have been really key parts of staying connected within the Clubhouse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thanks to Jack for the nice compliment about our newsletter. We certainly, we put a lot of dedication and commitment into our newsletter, ensuring that we print and have available every month a newsletter that is full of information about what we are doing as a clubhouse, what our members are doing in their successes, and about Clubhouse International and just overall Clubhouse and mental health. And we feel like it's an excellent way to disseminate the importance of clubhouses in our communities, and
just showing what we're doing.
And so we really wanted to make sure that our newsletter was packed full of that type of information. So it does go out to, we make sure we send it to all of our employers, to our board, to our clubhouse family and friends, our hospice agency, our donators. We give them out to our prospective new members, our referral sources, anybody we can share that information with, because we feel that every publication has a lot in it to give and to offer in terms of who we are and what we do. The Clubhouse app, you'll see the image to the right of this slide. It's a little blurry, we apologize. This was a grassroots effort in our Clubhouse, and we created it, I believe it was 2 years ago, and we created that app and we manage it. Ashlyn, in fact, is a huge resource in managing our app, and she'll do it right from her home and make updates on that right away. So we encourage you to check it out. It is a free app. We have our newsletters on there. It has a direct feed to Facebook, announcements, the Clubhouse news, events, pictures, whatever you want on that app for a pretty small annual charge. So it's a pretty cool deal. All right, next slide, please.
So in a nutshell, we accommodated COVID and we succeeded. We have a strong and engaging work order day on site and virtually. Our attendance is at 80% of our pre-COVID ADA or higher. It's growing every day, it seems. And all colleagues adhere to the safety and health procedures. All is well. TE and IPS programs are running smoothly. Socials are thriving, and the virtual component is here to stay.
Absolutely. So we've always dreamed, in fact, I was sharing this earlier, we dreamed to have a virtual component in our Clubhouse a couple years ago. We had a colleague move to a neighboring state, and she had asked, is it possible I can Skype into a meeting or something so I can still be engaged? And we always liked the idea, but you know how Clubhouse is, we just, time ran by and couldn't make it happen. And then COVID forced our hands. And here we are, now we have it. And I think it's really here to stay because we feel like it's expanded and enhanced our Clubhouse and our membership opportunities.
For sure. I mean, sometimes, you know, I have to work and sometimes I want to make it to a meeting or, you know, come to an event or something. And that Zoom room is the way that I can connect, you know, even if I'm working. So it's been a really amazing thing.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That concludes our presentation.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ashlyn and Renee, Chris, and Sarah. Thank you so much for the hard work that you put into these presentations. And I hope that all of you out there got a sense of how this can be done. And this is in our wheelhouse. If there's any type of organization that could make these kinds of pivots and make things still exciting and engaging, it's us in the Clubhouse world. And I think these are two good examples of it. We have 20 minutes left for questions and we've got a bunch of them, you guys. And so let me get right to them. First one, let's start with you guys at Frontier House. And it is, how have you been able to balance work and personal boundaries while working virtually?
Work and personal boundaries. We haven't struggled with that too much. We have so with, like, for example, with the cell phone, some of our colleagues have cell phone numbers and others don't. We do have a Clubhouse cell phone that our membership has access to call in. Like if colleagues are at home and they need to converse, that there's a way to do that as well. We haven't had too many issues with that just naturally, so I don't know how to really answer that per se, but we haven't struggled with that part.
What about you guys at Genesis?
Yeah, so at Genesis Club, we use an app called Text Now, which allows us all to have, each unit has their own phone number and anybody can log into the Text Now app that way. So in terms of personal boundaries and personal phone numbers, that's definitely a way we're accessible, but not handing out our personal phone numbers to one another.
We also use the platform Slack. It's a way of communicating and showing our the things we work on during the day, like our agendas for our meetings and our meeting minutes. And right now we're gonna have colleague training also on WebEx starting in October 19th week. And that's how we communicate together.
I think also with that, I mean, everybody knows everybody's cats and dogs and kids by now from doing this, but I think just like in when you manage transitional employment placements as a placement manager and somebody starts a job at the time the Clubhouse opens or before that, you have to set up a way for people to communicate with you. So whether you're sharing your cell or have some other method on doing that, you make those adaptations in regards to it, you know, making boundaries of that kind. Let's get to another one. Let's start with you, Genesis Club, on this question. How to rekindle interest in work order day tasks with members has been absent for 3 to 6 months, especially with the challenge of a new protocol. So the question is, how do you rekindle interest in work order day tasks with members having been absent for 3 to 6 months, especially with the challenge of the new protocols? So Genesis, can you take a crack at that one first, and then we'll switch over to Ashlyn and Renee?
Sure. I think our goal from the beginning was to reach out to every member every day from the beginning of COVID. So we really haven't lost touch with too many members that we were in contact with before. As long as we had an updated phone number or address or email address, we were able to talk to those people and keep them in the loop as to what we were doing. And we call those people daily almost at this point. Of course, there's a few people who have said, call me once a week, stop calling me every day. But we keep them in the loop and we let them know, hey, the older adult committee is having a social this weekend. Do you guys want to put together flyers for that? And just trying to find those things that the members are interested in or have been involved in the past, and just kind of rekindling that fire.
Renee, Ashlyn, do you have anything to add to that?
So what I've personally been doing is when I see a member who I haven't seen around for a while, I will make sure to greet them heartily and let them know that I'm happy to see them. And then I'll be like, do you want to help me with this? Do you want to, work with me on that? And so that's something that I've been trying to do. And I've found that a lot of times, especially if I know that member, pretty well, then it'll just, bring them back and be like, yeah, sure, that's what we've done before. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, and I think we just really, we walk the talk. We're doing work order day, and we need our members. And so it's just by the organic nature of drawing people in because of the feeling of being wanted, needed, and expected, and just kind of going back to the basics and using that as your premise. People are starting to come back in and be more comfortable and wanting to be involved just like they were before. I swear, like today, I was like, oh my gosh, it feels like we're stronger than ever. Our clubhouse is just thriving and it's moving and everybody's doing something and everybody's like stepping up to stuff. And it's work that we've had to do throughout the summer to get here to kind of reestablish it. Just like when someone gets injured, and it's amazing how quick they lose their physical strength and they have to go through rehab to get it back in. I kind of saw a little bit of that with our work order day when we started to get back into the building. We were in a rehab process. We had to build up our strength again. And by doing that, we just got back to the basics. We need our members. We want our members, and we're going to engage our members in things we're doing.
I think I would just add to that given it's resulting in so much isolation with people is thinking about the basics of food, shelter, community supports. And so clubhouses like Frontier House, Genesis Club, I know Journey House in Utah really made a big deal out of mobile reach out, delivering meals, helping people get to appointments. So organizing those work order day tasks around basic needs, like if people still aren't coming to the clubhouse, or if they have difficulty because of the limited transportation, how are people getting to and from? Are you delivering meals? Are you making sure people are making appointments? So if you're struggling with like the work order day test, think too of just the basic needs of people during this time. There's a lot of work to be done with preparing to-go meals, reach out calls, birthday cards, all those other things that we typically do. But I think that requires extra emphasis during a period of time where we're more isolated from each other. Here's the next question. How is everyone handling the concept of side-by-side work? So let's start with you this time, Ashlyn and Renee. How is everyone handling the concept of side-by-side work?
I mean, I think it's just as well as normal, except we're a little further away from each other. So we got to talk a little bit louder and, but I think that the feeling is still there. In the beginning, it was really weird. It was not natural, but we've adapted. So
yeah, we're very resilient people working in the clubhouse. And I think, we've, knowing that we have precautions in place as well, we're disinfecting, we're taking temperatures, we're washing hands, we're wearing masks. That also puts in layers of protection. But you just get creative, and side-by-side work doesn't physically have to mean side-by-side. Side-by-side is you're working on a project in collaboration with somebody else. So I could be on the screen here and have a colleague on Zoom at home, and we're still doing side-by-side work. So I think it's just as long as you're working with a colleague, with a member, that's side-by-side in my opinion.
A related question just while we're on that topic is how many at Frontier House, how many members are you guys allowing into the clubhouse each day, and how did you make that determination?
So we have a number, but I can tell you that we've even kind of revised that number. When we first really reopened, it was about 20 individuals, bodies in the building at one given time. So we find that we're kind of bumping that up more as we get more comfortable with the space, and our colleagues are becoming more familiar with our processes and protocols in terms of making sure that we are creating physical distancing. So we've kind of ramped it. We started with 20 at one time, which I mean, it was even pretty high. We just came up with that number looking at square footage and just also checking in with what the comfort level was for our colleagues. And now we're ramping up to maybe more closer to 30 at one time in the building.
Okay, and you guys did, and the second part of that question, you said that you'd use square footage to determine the number of members. Was there any other art or science to that and figuring that out?
Not really. When we were setting up our space, it was really trying to determine, the magic 6 foot number. How many people can we have in the room 6 feet apart? And then for our state, at one point, there was a guideline that you couldn't have more than 10 people in one space. So we used that for a little bit because our biggest spaces could accommodate more than that, even with 6 feet apart. But we limited at 10, but now we've ramped that up too.
Okay. So Sarah and Chris, you guys are a little bit different with Genesis with your plans, but sort of that same two-part question. How do you guys handle side by side, and what's your ADA now, and how do you determine that?
I'd say when I was in the clubhouse during this time, when we worked side by side, we came up with a plan in the units where we put the tape on the floor and on the side of the table, and that determines the distance we should be talking to each other and how far we should be for safety precautions. And I feel it was really weird at first, even with the mask, of course, but we progressed as it went on, and that's how I experienced it, and I got used to it, actually.
Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so kind of like Renee said, working side by side, in some cases, as like Chris said, we're working actually side by side, but with a little more distance. I think Ashlyn said that too. But we also are working side by side on Zoom. So when we are editing our newsletter, we share screen, we pull it up, and we send out the link, and we invite anybody who wants to help us with the newsletter, join this Zoom call. And the other day we had 5 to 10 people on the side kind of chiming in, and how should we put this here and format. So that sort of side by side definitely works too, and it's the same kind of collaboration, if not more collaboration in a lot of cases. For our capacity, we're at about 25% of what our previous capacity was, and similar to Frontier House, we kind of looked at our space, the magic 6 foot number, how many workstations can we put here, and make sure that we're all spaced evenly. We have people call in ahead of time to schedule, so people don't just come to the door and ring the doorbell, so that the membership unit especially doesn't have to turn people away. That's not really a fun thing to do. So we schedule people in and put out a schedule every morning for the membership unit to follow and see who's going to be attending today, who do we expect to be coming in, do we have a little wiggle room or not, based on who signed up.
Sarah, when you said we're at 25% capacity of our previous capacity, can you give some numbers to that?
Yeah, so our previous ADA was somewhere between 80 and 90 members per day, and then of course the staff as well. Now we're somewhere between 20 and 30 bodies in the building.
Okay, great. We're about 8 minutes to go. You guys got some more questions here. How are you able to hold interest during Zoom meetings as the week and months, it feels like years go by, and membership is wondering when the clubhouse will reopen? Let me restate it. How are you able to hold interest during Zoom meetings as the weeks and months go by and the membership is wondering, when will the clubhouse reopen? You want to tangle with that, Sarah and Chris, to start with?
I'm kind of thinking of how to answer that real quick.
I think one of the best ways for us is to just make sure everyone gets a chance at some point to say something. In our morning meetings, we used to just have kind of two facilitators and they talked the whole time, and it was really pretty boring. But now towards the end, they say, anybody else have anything to add? And each unit sort of has something to say. Like, oh, today we're working on this, and Sarah and Chris are going to be presenting at this conference, and good luck, everybody. And we kind of all chime in now. I find that that makes it a little bit more interesting for us.
Right.
Renee, Ashton, do you have anything to add to that?
So now Zoom is more of an optional thing for our colleagues. It's more of a convenience thing for those colleagues who maybe can't be in the building, mostly besides COVID. With before, when we were using Zoom for a large part of our operation, it was the same as Sarah said. It was just really trying to connect with each person who's on Zoom, allowing them to have a little bit of time to say, hey, this is how I'm doing. And having someone who is able to, I think, just identify everybody and make sure that they have an opportunity.
Yeah, that was really important, having that time to be able to say, yeah, I'm feeling this way. This is what's going on in my life, you know, because that's what I would normally do at the clubhouse. And without the clubhouse to be able to do that it was really nice to still have that on Zoom. So that was one big way that I personally connected to Zoom.
Let me move over to a couple tech questions that are related as we're closing in on 5 minutes to go, because we have a number of questions regarding that. So I'm going to try to combine them, and I'll respond first and then turn it over to you guys. But the questions relate to, how do you do the work order day with people who don't have the internet, or how do you help people learn how to use Zoom? And if you're using an app service, what are you using? What is the cost? So, like, how do you get people tech savvy? What are you doing? And what sorts of tools are you using? I'll start with just saying that the Academy at Glengarry in Florida and Putnam Clubhouse in California both got tablets and phones. Were able to get like a really great price, and did a lot of in-service training to get tablets and phones with extended minutes, Wi-Fi plans out to members to begin to do some of this stuff. So if anybody wants contact info, you can get Academy at Glengarry in Florida, Putnam Clubhouse in California, get their email addresses off our website, or reach out to me and I'd be glad to put you in touch with the direct people involved with that. So let's go to Renee and Ashley on that one. The tech stuff. How did you get tech support into your members' hands? What kind of apps? How do you get people tech savvy?
We spent a lot of time on the phone coaching people, you know, just coaching them directly step by step on the phone of how to use Zoom. We did a Zoom, kind of a Zoom tutorial that showed people the ins and outs of using Zoom. And then we do have some tablets that have data on it, like Wi-Fi, and yeah, we have a few of those that we'll check out for a person. We haven't been able to actually purchase someone for their to keep, but we have them to check out. And we also paid some cell phone, some internet and cell phone bills in order for people to have access to the technology during the heightened part of our COVID, our pandemic, when the clubhouse really mostly was operating virtual. Those are the things that we did then.
Okay. Sarah, Chris?
And different laptops and set up plans for a few of our members, actually quite a few of our members who were in need of those sorts of pieces of technology to just get over that barrier to join us. And in most cases, when we got somebody a tablet, we hand delivered or had them come to the clubhouse, and we got the apps onto their tablet for them, the WebEx app, the Zoom app, and kind of walked them through at least a first run through of how to join a meeting using both of those. We also use Facebook quite a bit. So each of our units has their own page. We have different groups that we use to share a lot of information. And when we get people those pieces of technology, we often set them up with a Facebook account if they don't already have one, and add us as a friend so that they can get the information on how to join those meetings on their own too.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that when we do help with like Zoom meetings and host them, we are sharing the screen and like using the mouse cursor to show which steps to do to click, even to teach them how to screen share themselves so they can ask, oh, which button do I press to do this to help out our clubhouse or whatever.
I have found it helps to be humble too. Like my kids and my neighbor's kids and anybody who's like 10 years or older helps me with figuring out some of the tech stuff that I'm not particularly savvy with. So I think asking anyone you know who lives by you or a relative or whatever, and anybody in the clubhouse, that mostly the young adults know this stuff better than anybody, to get more tech savvy. It's the way of the world. And so like it or not, we gotta get better at this stuff as we move forward. Last question, as we have about a minute and a half to go, two-parter for both you clubhouses. If you have a cafe shop as part of the work order day, how do you handle purchases of cash safely? Like how do you handle serving and preparing stuff every day? Second part of the question, heading into the winter months, how you plan serving lunches in the fall and colder weather? So two-part question. If you're handling cash, how you doing that safely and doing the meals safely? And with colder weather, if you do an outdoor type of thing, what are your backup arrangements? Let's go to Colorado first with Ashlyn and Renee.
So our lunch, we received quite a bit of COVID grant funding, and we offered lunch free of charge for about 3 or 4 months, so all the way through summer, so that one nice little piece of that was that we avoided the use, handling a lot of cash. But we are handling cash. We do have a procedure in place where the customer will put the cash in a basket, and then the cashier will take the cash with a gloved hand and process it, and that it's only one person handling the cash at one time, and it's not a bunch of people in there. And that's tend to work pretty good. We have the plastic plexiglass between the cashier and the window. And then outdoor dining, to be like I mentioned, we're kind of phasing a little bit out of that as of most recently, as people are coming back, getting into where we have space for them in the building. We're spacing people apart in here. So we've set dining out there, but people aren't using it as much. The weather is getting colder, so that will cause an issue. We won't, set people out there in the snow, but it's kind of just happening naturally for us to kind of phase back in, phase that part maybe out so much.
Yeah, we use a lot more of our building to eat now.
Yeah. Using other spaces. Sarah or Chris, anything to add to that?
For us, in terms of eating in the outdoor space and not being able to use that, our Columbus Day is coming up, and we have set forward a shift sort of eating. So some people are going to come at 11 o'clock and eat, and then they're going to leave at 11:45. We'll clean and do another shift at 12. In terms of money, similar to Frontier House, we have one person in our snack shop who handles the money and one person who delivers food. And then the same with our lunch. We actually sell lunch tickets ahead of time from the membership unit, and then you just bring your ticket to the lunchroom.
Okay. All right, you guys, thank you for your hard work in preparing. I want to thank our panel, Chris, Sarah from Genesis Club, Renee and Ashlyn from Frontier Clubhouse, and thank Jen from Intuitive, who's kind of been the Wizard of Oz behind the scenes with the tech stuff. We are going to take a break right now, and we have our closing plenary session coming up. You'll also receive an evaluation for the conference, and on this workshop and any others throughout the conference, we want your feedback to let us know. This is our first time doing this type of conference. We have, I think, almost 1,200 people who have attended the conference, which we're really happy about. So thank you. Thank you for connecting up with us, and thank you for coming to this workshop. And with that, anything else, Jen, or can we go to break?
No, you can go to break. Enjoy.
All right. See you guys. Thank you.